welcome this morning. It's great to see everybody out here for our first breakout session. You guys picked the right one. You guys won today. I have the great pleasure today to introduce our first speaker in the concert hall today, Lesley Hawkins, the Vice President of Retail at Adidas Canada. My name is Vito DeFilippis. I'm Senior Vice President at Environics Analytics. For those of you who don't know me, for those of you that do, please make sure your invoices are paid on time. You know, I've had some time over the last year to work very closely with Lesley. She's a pioneer in the retail space. She's very consumer focused, very focused on her brand and how to make it the biggest sporting and athleisure brand in Canada. She also is an influencer on LinkedIn. If you're not following on LinkedIn, I highly recommend it. Me and all the staff do. She has great videos where she gives good wisdom on business, on life in general. I've gotten a lot out of that. And that's why we had her come speak today, because we want to bestow some of that wisdom on you. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our first speaker of today, Lesley Hawkins. All right, welcome, Lesley.
Hi, everyone.
I think to start off, we want to ask the question that everybody's wondering. What is your Prism segment?
So you're going to love this. It's stressed in suburbia. So, and my husband would 100% agree with that. So it's typically families, it's a little bit older couples, they've got teens at home, 75% of them own their homes, and they enjoy lots of different sports, of which one is golf, and that's totally my background. Although there is one thing, they do typically, stressed in suburbia, over-index in DIY projects, which is totally not me. So I would say this Prism segment's got me mostly covered, but not entirely.
Yeah, so this is like Jan's example from this morning, where it's kind of you, but maybe it's more your neighbors.
Exactly.
But luckily you see the value. Yes, we love this. If you guys haven't tried it, I'm assuming if you're in the room you have, you can go to prism.environicsanalytics.com, put in your own 6-digit postal code and find out which one you are. It's a really fun party game. Get all your friends to do it. It's a blast. Jumping into our session today, which is going to be a bit of a Q&A fireside chat, we want to talk a little bit about, when we started working with you, Lesley, what was Adidas' challenge and why did you come to Environics Analytics to partner with us on the data and analytics side?
Yeah, so do you want to click? So let me give you a little bit of our journey. So when we had COVID happening, it was definitely felt everywhere throughout our entire organization. In our physical stores, what we did during COVID, just like many other businesses, is we delayed a lot of our investments. Our staff, because COVID was not nice to retail staff, I will say, were very tired, uninspired, and were absolutely exhausted. And our systems, once again, we delayed some of the investments there, really trying to make sure that we took care of our associates and kept the business moving during COVID. We were also pretty uncertain as we were coming out of COVID of what's the consumer's reaction going to be like to retail? Sure. And would traffic return? And our friends in the media would say that it was the death of retail, that retail was never going to come back, and that consumers were only ever going to buy online. So we really needed, that was sort of where we were at that moment. So coming out of COVID, the next thing that we did was we needed to reinvest in our, you can go forward, in our fleet. But it wasn't just investing in our physical stores, it was also investing in our systems. So we had to invest in upgrading some of the stores, but more than anything, also bringing new concepts to the marketplace. Because over the last 5 years that we weren't necessarily investing in our stores, our global development team had come up with all these great new concepts, and so we wanted to bring those to Canada. We also needed to inspire our staff. So we sort of re-engineered our entire employee value proposition, and we upgraded our systems because consumers were telling us again and again, you need to make my consumer journey as easy as possible. The good thing is that coming out of COVID, consumers came back to retail, and they came back to retail in a big way. The challenge is they came with a lot more demands. And one of our biggest challenges is a blessing and a curse. We have a great product assortment. We cover all kinds of different sports, but it was how do we become meaningful to all these different consumers and make sure that we showcase as much of our product as we can. So we partnered with Environics because we really needed to find a way to hone in on those consumers. And it was our opportunity to look at where our stores are. Are they in the right geography, in the right location, given where our consumers and our brand advocates are? Do we have the right concept for them as well? Because as I'll explain to you in a minute, we have quite a few different concepts that we have available. And then looking at each store and saying, all right, what's the unique selling proposition? Who is our consumer? Why are they coming to visit us? Why are they visiting us and buying with us versus one of our competitors? And then as we look further down the road of 25 to 28, and we're building out our strategy, is where are we not? Where are our consumers? Where are our competitors? What geographies do we need to be in? And also making sure that our product that we are assorting, because we're generally a year and a half ahead, are we bringing in the right product into Canada to really assign to those consumers to whom are our brand advocates? So it was a lot of information that we came, well, there was more questions, quite honestly, that we came to Environics than we would expected, but it was great.
Well, and Lesley, I think what we definitely found was, from our perspective, those questions and your business imperative and the plans that you guys had really helped us come to the table with the right data solutions and work with you in the way that made sense. Because as you know, we always have limited time. We always have to, get to the right story as quickly as possible. And we were able to work with your team and kind of come to the table, provide you with some surprises from the data perspective, but also make sure that we're fitting the narrative and fitting what you needed to do as a business person, which that collaboration we felt was really great. Our team really enjoyed it. I'll give a bit of an overview of what our team did to support Adidas. The first thing with us at Environics Analytics always starts with the data. So we talked about Prism, and it's a fun tool to look at your postal code and see which neighborhood lifestyle type you're a part of, but it's also a very powerful marketing tool. And we wanted to make sure we were using that to identify the lifestyle types for Adidas's customers, but also for competitive customers, so we can identify where there may be opportunity to get more market share or find more white space. We used our demographic data demo stats to understand that full demographic profile, from things like newcomers to young people, to urban versus suburban. Household spend to understand that expenditure information in the retail space. As Lesley mentioned, retail's changed a little bit since the pandemic, and understanding what people's spending habits are and where those opportunities are to grow that wallet share is important. And we had a behavioral database called Optics Numeris we used to understand retail shopping habits, not just who they were and what they're spending, but how they like to be shopped. Is it online? Is it through apps? Is it going to the mall, et cetera? And last but not least, but I think the most important thing, is our MobileScapes and Envision product that we used as well. And I know in this morning's session we talked a little bit about MobileScapes, but what we were able to do with that is create digital geofences around Adidas stores and competitive stores, pull the visitors there, and really identify what that profile is, not just of the full Adidas customer, but actually of the unique store types. And Lesley, do you mind taking the audience through what those store types are?
Yeah, so we have about 8 different store types, but I've accumulated them into 3. So the first one is our concept stores. And so the image you see here is from our Toronto Eaton Centre store, which is actually a flagship store. Typically, our flagship stores have got the largest footprint. They're our best brand experience, and they carry a pretty broad assortment of all of our sports and our lifestyle products. And they're in real downtown core with high traffic. So we have one at Toronto Eaton Centre, and if you're in Vancouver, there's one coming to the corner of Robson and Burrard, right in the downtown core. So that's the first one. The second one that we have is called the Originals concept, or the collection. And that is really our lifestyle brand. It tends to be also in downtown core as well. It's a bit of a smaller footprint, and it really does focus on everything 3 stripes. I have to rock the 3 stripes every day. And this particular picture is from the Well, and I will in a few minutes tell you a little bit about that particular store. And the last but certainly not least is our factory outlet. So factory outlet stores are a variety of different sizes, but they tend to be either in mall or standalone locations, tend to be on the outskirts of cities, in secondary or tertiary markets, and really they're geared for the value consumer. So they will have both a blend of full price product, so the latest Sambas that you might like, but also more than anything, it's really where you would go and get a lot of your value product. It will also include some clearance product as well. So within our factory outlet, we have quite a few different tierings. So whether it's Halton Hills that's out at the Toronto Premium Centre or MacArthur Glen out in Vancouver, there's a whole variety between there of all the factory outlet stores. And they all speak to a similar consumer and yet very different.
That makes sense. And that Well location, by the way, if you haven't had a chance to check it out in Toronto, if you're from the Toronto area, very cool. The whole retail space is amazing, but the Adidas store there is absolutely beautiful. And so, thanks, Lesley, for that. Coming back to what we're able to do is think about us taking each of those store types and identifying the unique customer to each of those. That's what we were able to do using that MobileScapes information and pulling those visitors. And it's as tedious as having our team draw digital geofences around each location so that we can pull that and extract that data properly. And you can see some examples of some of the maps of how we did that, not just for Adidas, but also for their competitors as well in power centers and malls and standalones. And it gives us a very interesting view that we can take a look at. This map here, the pink circles represent where customers are coming from. The bigger the dot, the more customers are coming from there. And those black boxes with yellow squares around them are the Adidas stores. And so you can see there is some relationship between where the customers are located and where the stores are located, but there's also a lot of opportunity where there may be ability to open more stores, market in different markets differently for online options, et cetera. And you can see already there's some good storytelling we can get from a geographic perspective. Absolutely. And then last but not least, we also use Prism to understand who the customer is. And that's the next question I want to ask you, Lesley, is can you give us a better idea of the key differentiators that you found in the target groups for Adidas?
Yeah, so we took all of the Prism data and really we had asked Environics to supply us with some basic information. And it was starting with what consumer types are spending their money with us versus our competitors. And we selected 2 competitors. And then where are our consumer types actually buying their athletic footwear and apparel? And then also the geodemographics of exactly who is shopping in our stores today. So tell us about the ethnic diversity, the household composition, the wealth, where they live. Give us all of that information. And then dialing it down a little bit more into, okay, if they are buying athletic footwear and apparel, where are they buying it? And sort of what exactly are they looking for in their sports? What sports do they participate in? What sports do they watch? And then where do they like spending their time? What do they do with their free time? And so it was really with all of this information that we worked with Environics to really help build out our strategy. And this is sort of one of the samples of the information. As you can see, there's tons of information here of exactly where this target group, which is made up of 3 different Prism segments, where they're shopping, why they're shopping, how, their basic demographics as well. And this information has been a game changer for us. And I'm not paid to say that, just so you know.
I'll give you your 20 later.
Yeah, thanks. But I will share 2 examples with you, one that has been a runaway hit and one that has been a great learning for us. So we mentioned earlier the Well. So the Well, if you don't know it, is a mixed-use new development that is right downtown at the corner of Front and Spadina. And we were approached by the developers about 3 years ago, talking about who this is going to be a great new build. It'll be really exciting for downtown Toronto. And we were excited because we made the assumption that it would appeal to the young, urban singles living in all of those condos around the mall, and that they would really love our lifestyle products, or our Originals brand. And we said, if we're going to be in this space, we need to be front and center. We need to make sure that we've got the most visible space. So we did that. So we approached we negotiated our space, and it's actually what we call the bullnose. So literally 3 of the walls are windows, so you can see in from every area. And we brought in our new concept called the collection for the originals, and exactly what we expected to happen, happened. And it was supported by all the data, because obviously we made those decisions before we were working with you. And it was great. And the sales there, the consumer that we see, the sales, their reaction to our location has been amazing. So that's a good news story. The other one is a bit more of a learning. So in Kingston, we have, it's a pretty old strip mall. It's an outlet mall that's just off the 401. And our assumptions were that this is really not only a value shopper, but what we call the cheap and cheerful, like really, really value seekers. And the reason is because we thought, well, there's a lot of retirees, they're on fixed incomes, there's students there, they have no money. And then also we've got the commuters going back and forth from Toronto to Montreal. They want to stop in and get a deal. So it was an outlet store, and it was doing all right, but not amazing. So we said, you know what we're going to do? Based on what we think, we're going to change it to a clearance store. And the difference between an outlet and clearance really is where product just goes to die. And so it was the ones and the twos, and that's not really much of a sales pitch for our clearance store, is it? Sorry. But it's really a lot of ones and twos. You don't get full collections. You won't necessarily get a full size run, but you'll definitely get a full smattering of our opportunities and our assortment. And the consumer's reaction was exactly the opposite. Our sales plummeted at that mall. And we were scratching our heads. So at that time, we were just started to work with Environics, and thank goodness we did, because when we looked at all of the data on exactly who was shopping in our store, we weren't wrong with who the consumers want. What we were wrong with is that they over-indexed in a couple of areas. One, they were much younger than we thought. Their median age was 52. Okay, well, we can get away with that. But they overspend in our store in 2 categories. One was clothing, and one was recreation. And so they love having a deal, they love getting a deal, but they are gonna splurge, and they're splurging in one space, and that was in sports. And so we immediately flipped our store, went back to what it was, which is actually some full price, a lot of value, but actually with collections with deep size curves and lots of offerings and very little clearance, and now our sales are flying. So it's been a really interesting journey.
It's a great story.
So one of the other things that we asked is to look at lookalikes, which that sounds a little odd, but we wanted to see, where do we reside today? We know our stores, we know our competitive stores, but where are also our target groups? And as you can see on this map, the darker the color, it means that that's actually where our target groups exist. And so if you're me, you're looking at this, there's one area that we do not have any penetration. Our competitors are there, which is in the Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, Guelph area, particularly in Guelph. So today we do not have a store there, and yet our target groups are there and our competitors are there. So as we look at what are we doing in 25 through 28 and we're building out the strategy, that's where this information is absolutely paramount, because it will allow us to really make sure that we're honing in on where our brand advocates are and where we need to be.
That's great. I think you can clearly see, just even from that map, what the value is of this
Absolutely.
data to your brand and what you've been doing. So I have one more question for you, which we always have to ask about the results, right? So don't want to put you on the spot. But how has Adidas leveraged this information to help drive the business results that you've seen today, beyond some of the examples you've already shared?
Yeah, so definitely given those examples. So what we're doing is we're looking at our current fleet and taking all of this data and level setting exactly to make sure that we avoid those situations and those assumptions like we made at Kingston, and moving beyond that and actually getting into the data. So we're validating each of our stores, making sure that we're in the right location, and that we have the right concept. So we have this great options of different concepts in our global portfolio. Is it the right one? And if it isn't, then what are we going to do about it? It's also helping to guide our assortment planning and our store layout. So as I mentioned before, we have so many different sports in which we play. The problem is that when you have a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot store, you can't have every different category in there, and definitely not in a meaningful way. So what we're doing is looking at, based on that consumer portfolio that's coming into those stores, what are the top 3 to 5 sports that are absolutely critical? So does it need to be running and training and soccer or football, because we're obviously a European company? Or is it more geared to skate and basketball and some of the other, the Originals brand, for example? So it's guiding a lot of that. But we're also looking at other opportunities. So using the data, not only for product, but looking at our staffing levels and the kind of staff that we have, and making sure that we are being reflective of exactly the consumer that we're serving in that store. And then the other thing is through a lot of the Mobilescapes information, we can look at what traffic patterns are. Now, all of our stores do have traffic counters, but it's just validation to make sure, particularly as we're in amongst our competitors, of making sure that we're got the right amount of staff at the right location at the right time, so that we're capturing everybody who's coming by our store. And then obviously there's real estate implications. So we use the terms of divest, invest, and harvest. So divest is where we're looking at a store and we say, okay, maybe we're gonna walk away from it, maybe we're gonna close it. And it's not just this consumer data that's helping guide that. Obviously there's historicals, but the consumer data does definitely help. And then looking at invest. So those are stores that we're going to expand or renovate. And then harvest, we're going to keep the store, but maybe we do a light refresh. Maybe we change the concept. I would say that, there's been a lot of talk this morning about the changing consumer. And we opened some stores like 20 plus years ago. That consumer portfolio and that community has completely changed.
Sure.
So that's where we're having to make changes to our fleet based on, who we thought the consumer was 20 years ago isn't necessarily the same and isn't necessarily brand advocates of ours. So do we invest our money elsewhere? And then the future fleet, right? As that example that I showed about Guelph. Anybody from Guelph here? We're coming to you soon. But really looking at what are the growth markets and where can we grow our business and make sure that we're making intelligent real estate actions and real estate decisions based on a lot of these insights.
That's great. Well, Lesley, thank you so much for that. I think, one thing I took away is the level of consumer centricity that you have been able to inject into the brand across retail, across product assortment, marketing is just incredible. And I think it really fits with the theme of today. So I really appreciate you having you here today and sharing this story, which I can tell by the nodding heads was very valuable. I think I'm going to check. I think we have a couple minutes for questions, if you don't mind. Do we have any questions from the audience today? As long as they're softballs. Do you have any questions from the audience?
Not that we can see anybody, to be honest.
I'm going to keep an eye.
There's a question back.
Right back there, right at the back.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think there's a mic maybe coming your way.
They're going to come, yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. So I have a question. So I work in media, and you were talking about driving traffic to your store. Are you using that data to use advertising to also drive traffic to the store? And if you do, how effective is that data in advertising?
Just to repeat it, you're asking, has any of the data been used to help with advertising?
Yeah, like running ad on connected TV, social media.
Yep. So are you using any of the
that?
data for advertising on connected TV or social media? Anything?
Yeah, so I will say that that's the next step. We're pretty early in our relationship, and I think my first priority is we need to make sure that our stores are exactly what our consumers need and expect and are demanding from us. So that's level one. Level 2 is then engaging our marketing partners about exactly, because we do have all of the information about media habits as well of those consumers, is taking that information. That will sort of be the next thing that we flow into 25 planning, which is kicking off now, to make sure that we're talking to those consumers in the way that they expect us to and the way that we expect them to. So yes, it's coming, I would say.
Stay tuned.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
We have another question over here.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm on the real estate side. I wonder if you can talk about, do you find the landlords are also leveraging this data? Like you're looking yourself about, okay, a certain enclosed mall competition, like do you find the real estate's a bit of a laggard here. Do you find when you're engaging with a Allied REIT, RioCan type landlord, are they up to speed on leveraging demographic data, mobility data, or is this like brand new for them?
This was a real estate question, and let me just repeat it because it is hard for us to hear.
It's hard to hear, so there's a bit of an echo.
But is the question, are you engaging the real estate corporations and opportunities that come up for leases with this information and data in mind? Is that the question?
Well, or do they already have it? Like, are you?
Do
are
they
you
already have the
finding-
information? Have they ever come to you with information saying, "Hey, we know
So-
who's coming to this mall," to try to find the alignment there?
So yes, a lot of our landlords do already have quite a bit of consumer data, but it's not nearly as in tune or as detailed as we have now. And I think as a landlord, there's more generic information, and it's all about foot traffic and how many people are coming in and what the general demographics are. But if you're looking at a large mall like the Toronto Eaton Centre, it's very, very high level, the details. What I want to know is exactly who is coming into my store, who's coming into the competitor store, and I need much more detail. And so we actually, with all of this, have a lot more information that we come to landlords with of either reasons that we're not going to be investing in that space or reasons that we actually do want to be part of it. And so we've originally, as we're looking at potential future real estate actions, are looking at exactly where our target groups are, and then also what malls or what strip malls or what street fronts are available there, and trying to see if there's a blend. I'll be honest with you, there isn't always a great blend. While our target consumers are there, if there isn't really a mall or a space that really matches our brand values, then we move on and we just wait until there's something down the road. But I think this level of detail would be amazing in the real estate world.
We have some more questions here, but I'm going to leave someone to stop us when it's time to stop. So we'll take one more.
We have one more question on the balcony.
Perfect. We'll take one more.
Thanks. Can you see?
So
Right over
I've been
this
hearing you talk a lot about your stores, like the actual Adidas stores. Now,
Yes.
I know I can go shopping like at the Bay and I can get your stuff there. So how are you using the data to determine whether it should be a store or should I just have my stuff sold in this store, and is it like actually worth the money putting it in a store than instead of having your own flagship store?
This question was more around, it's more around using the data to understand partner store retail, like the Bay, for instance.
So, yeah, obviously part of our Adidas Canada or global business is across all channels. So we do a lot of work with our wholesale partners and our e-com partner and retail. And so the three channels work quite well together. And so a lot of the information that we are garnering, while it's useful for our retail stores, it also is helping our wholesale leaders and our wholesale sales directors to really better understand for our target consumer, what wholesale partners are they going into? If they're not going into our store, where are they going? And it really helps to, curate some of that conversation, particularly as we're right in the midst of selling in for fall/winter of 25. So it's not just something that is used for retail, although that's my little world, but it is used actually broadly beyond just the retail channel.
Definitely.
To clarify quickly. So which of like EA's products, I guess, for my question, would you be using to determine this stuff?
Why don't I answer
Yeah,
that
you can
question?
answer that one.
I think there's a few EA products that would add a lot of value to determine that partner retail piece. On the one hand, we have a lot of great behavioral data on the types of retailers that consumers want to shop at, and we can link that to customer data. We can link that to visitor data. And I think our two other ones is, one is our Mobilescapes database, which is the one that we use to understand the visitors to Adidas and competitors. That could be used for any retailer, really, in Canada, any location in Canada. To be honest, and we can pull who's visiting there and compare those profiles. The other piece is we have a database called Clickscapes, which gives you a lot of web data. As a lot of brands become direct, that may be another thing to consider on who's visiting specific retailer websites for shopping online. And it's not just necessarily one or the other. All of that links to Prism and our demographic data, but it's usually a combination of that which gives you that real solution that's going to provide value. I hope I answered that question right. Again, it is very hard for us to
It's
hear.
hard to hear up here.
But I think, Lesley, thank you so much for the
Thank
time
you.
again today.
Appreciate it.
Can we give a round of applause to Lesley just for that great session?
Thank you.